before you came to EXP? All right. Good number. Cliff Freeman is on his way.
When Cliff walks in, everybody at the count of three say, "Hi, Cliff," really loud, okay? I'm sorry, Cliff Freeman. Cliff is a world-renowned coach. He's on our panel. He's phenomenal. He's sitting right over here in brilliant, and he's late, and that's really embarrassing. Can you hear me now?
Cliff, don't make too much fun of him because he does have 2,900 people in his organization, so he's doing all right.
One, two, three. Hi, Cliff. Thank you.
No hurry. All right, you guys can get started.
All right, without further ado, we'll get underway. And from the looks of this room, there's some interest in bringing independent brokers to EXP, huh? All right. So what we have is a panel of folks that are going to give you insights on how to attract independent brokers to EXP. Some of them were independent brokers. And before we do that, I'm just going to say a few things about what I consider to be the magnitude of this opportunity. A few years ago, NAR surveyed their membership and determined that 51% of the agents in the United States were in independent brokers. So literally half of the agents in the US are not affiliated to franchises. So it's a big opportunity for us. The other thing that strikes me is that our timing is exquisite. As many of you know, since 2012, we've been in a fantastic market in most parts of the country, and we're getting a little late in the cycle. And what we're beginning to see is some of those brokers that had been nominally profitable are not so much anymore. And so what you're going to find is that those folks that weren't willing to listen to you before may be more open to a conversation in the very near future. Finally, I want you to think about our value proposition, and I believe in good articulation for the EXP value proposition for an independent broker is that we enable them the opportunity to scale their sales organization without broker liability and capital risk, and do so with the support structure of our organization. And for a lot of folks, that's pretty compelling. So as we go to our panel now, what I'd like for each of you guys to share is your best success story in bringing an independent to EXP. And Albie, of course, I want you to start with yourself, your story.
My story?
Okay.
So yeah, my name's Al Stasek. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. Last week I just celebrated 2 years with this amazing company. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for my sponsor, Uncle Cliffy over there. Thank you, brother. Thank you for forcing me to see this. So I think that for me, like maybe many in this room, I had a lot of people banging on my door about EXP, people that I trusted a lot, and I blew them all off until Cliff came. And it wasn't just Cliff's good looks that got me to really look at this as an independent broker. For me, my objection constantly was, look, I have my own brokerage. I'm not paying Remax any longer. I was a Remax, loved Remax and everything, but I'm not paying them 90 grand a year anymore. Why would I go join another brokerage where I'm actually going to now pay? I just got my broker's license. I'm feeling like this is my pinnacle, right? And so it wasn't until my my number 1 agent and my number 3 agent, of which both I was very close as far as a relationship with them. We had a small 12-person independent brokerage, so we were kind of like a family. And I got the call, and my coach John Shetlak calls it early Christmas presents when they want to talk. And so their conversation was they were going to go start their own team. They were seeing our success and figuring they were getting me rich, which was not the case at all. Perception is reality. And so they went and took 2 other agents to Keller Williams and walked $400,000 off my bottom line. So that's enough pain right there to like maybe think for a second you might be wrong. And that's what, my good friend who you all heard, Mike Reese, always, I get the pleasure of talking with him every day and growing this business with him, and he always challenges me to think differently. Specifically, think where might I be wrong? And so that's what I did when Cliff sent me it. For me, I was looking to solve a problem. So when you're, relating to another independent broker, if they don't tell you they have any problems, they're lying, because we all have problems, and whether it's growth, retention, getting a culture, whatever it is, and if they're honest and they do genuinely want to grow and have an opportunity, they will share with you what their biggest challenges are. And our platform can either solve it or it can't. And so for me, I hated recruiting, believe it or not. I just didn't like chasing people down, making cold calls and all that, so I didn't do it. What proves that is I left Remax with probably about 8 agents as an independent broker over 4 years. I ended up with 12. It did not make me recruiter of the year any of those years. So I just didn't do it. It was more relational. And so for me, that was the check in the box. Also, I just lost my top agent, so it solved another problem, which was retention.
Right.
So that 9 that you had when you came, what is that number today?
I'm sorry?
What is your organization size today from your 9?
Well, locally in Cleveland, our team grew from 10 that we brought over altogether to 50 locally. And we have, I think I have 1,744.
1,700.
So for me,
What time frame?
2 years last week. So for me, I approach it from what problems does this solve, and a lot of hands went up here that were independent brokers. So when you're going and talking to other independent brokers, you can relate, and there's a dynamic that unless you've been in those shoes, unless you've been served, lawsuit papers as the broker, and had to, that just ruins your whole damn week. And but unless you've been walking a mile in those shoes, you don't know what you don't know. But if you do, you can then relate with these other human beings who are walking that right now, and they also may have a misguided idea that they actually have an exit strategy, or that their brokerage is worth something.
Right.
And some will say that maybe it is, but chances are it's the lowest. A real estate brokerage is the lowest multiple as far as a purchase of any other the kinds of companies. It's usually like 1 to 2 multiples.
Well, for reference, it's about 3.5 times trailing 12 months earnings for profitable. But what they'll do is they'll make you strip your production out of the P&L before they calculate it.
Well, and that's the other thing. When you're small, a lot of times you're still in production. And if you go to hop out, you better recruit, or you're going to go broke. I mean,
there's no profit to multiply.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, if you have a smaller brokerage, chances are, it really isn't worth anything that someone's going to come and buy. But this, which makes this opportunity so much better, because the revenue share, and from a standpoint of just your agents. This had to solve problems for my agents before me.
Right.
Everyone in here that's a team leader or a broker, we're going to be fine, no matter what. If we went to Remax, we'd be fine. If we went back to independent, we'll be fine. Doesn't mean that we're going to have the opportunity we have right now, but our agents So it has to solve problems for the agents, which it did solve problems for my agents. Otherwise, we wouldn't have came, right?
So I need to get to George, but are you willing to, can you share what that monthly revenue share is now?
It's like 72,000, I think this.
Okay, so 800,000 a year.
I think it was 72 this month.
So a 5 cap on that income, you've created the equivalent of about a $16 million business in 2 years.
Yeah. It's important to point out I did not do this alone. I have a great partners with Mike and Jay. We have fun every day. We say this, and this is another point to trying to stick to what we're all in this room for, is that, who in here absolutely crushed it, you grew your business, and it appears from the outside that it's still great, but you're driving to work, and you're like, this is bullshit, I don't want to do this no more. Anybody? It just became not fun, and I experienced that. And these other independent brokers probably are experiencing it, unless, or if they haven't, that it may be around the corner, they just don't know it yet. And so we have fun every day, and we've never had this much fun, and it's a lot to do with just the people that this organization is attracting, like the people you have up here that make it fun. So.
My sense is that you're just warming up, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, George, I want your success story in 2 minutes or less.
All right. Well, first up, and I'll cut it short, I promise. Everybody that's an independent broker or was one, raise your hands. Everybody look around. These are the people you want to talk to find out how they were attracted over, because every story is different. My first success story was with the Century 21 broker. He was recruiting people, and I said, well, listen, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. And we sat down, and he ended up joining. The guy was a 40-year broker. I was afraid to talk to him. And he was actually putting people out on Facebook, or putting an ad out on Facebook. That was my first brokerage I brought over. There was another guy that I spent 9 months throwing up on his shoes, and he's sitting right here, and he's grown my business by 100 people. He actually didn't get me to recruit him. At this point, I didn't have the skill set that the rest of these guys do. I just kept talking to him, and luckily, he started interviewing me. This is a contact sport, and more than anything, don't be afraid of who you're speaking to. Go out and meet with them. But everybody's going to be a little bit different. Hence the reason it's so important to talk to the other ones around you, because each story is different. If I were talking to Al, it'd be a different conversation than it is with my partner over here, because you have to ask them the questions. There was so much good stuff about that today and yesterday, wasn't there, about digging deep? Independent brokers have different pain thresholds than me as an agent. They've got liabilities. They're getting, the potential that you're usually exhausted, and my God, what is it? The number is 13 of the, or not 12 of the 13 brokers that were being spoken to by, who was it?
Rick.
Thank you. Rick brought that up. We're all using their production to make this work. Guys, just ask them questions. Be involved with them. Don't be afraid of them. They're literally interested in recruiting you anyway, so give it a try and let them ask you some questions and just answer them. And it seems to work. You've had great success. You're awesome, Dick. This is so cool. I'm sitting next to him up here. This is great with these guys too. This is a dream for me.
Awesome. Thanks, George.
You got it.
Adam, 2 minutes or less.
So here's how you attract independence. You build a good business and you show them you're more profitable than they are. That's it. There's 2 people in this room I sold 6,000 houses with over 7 years. Where's Gerber at? Gerber, stand up. Stand up. That guy, I made $300 a week 9 years ago when he put me on, and we ended up selling a bunch of homes together. He changed my life. So whoever invited you here, it's so flippant. Like, you're changing lives, but we're connected. I've known him for 8 years. And to see him get in and blow this up, and this guy coached that guy right when I got in the business, making $300 a week, and and so for all of us to be growing this company, nobody cares about how many homes you sold. Because I used to think we sell 1,000 homes a year. I was a sales guy, I was an ISA, and now when I talk to people, how profitable are you? Because most of these people, I'm talking about independents, are not profitable. Show me your P&L. I'll be vulnerable. I'll show you how profitable I am. I used to think I was cool when I was like, we sold 1,000 houses a year. We sold 500 last month. And I'll never brag about that on the internet the way I built it before, because I want to be profitable. And I want to help you. He worked me out of the field. I quit selling real estate 7 years ago. I was just making $300 9 years ago, a week. So get around the right people, do the right things, and build a business. That's it. Because selling houses, we can do that tomorrow, guys. We can do that when we get back home. My voice is being ran ragged, and they're like, dude, how are you doing it? Just build a good business. Be profitable. Be a good human being. Be a good leader. Because EXP is just a little business that powers all of our businesses. He had a good business before he got into EXP. We had a good business before we got into EXP. He had a good business. EXP just powers our business. EXP is not going to make you successful. And so how do you attract independents? You be a good independent leader, and that will attract other independents.
So Adam, you shared with me before the meeting started.
What's that?
You had an independent that...
No, that guy built that thing from, I had ownership in it.
Got it.
He left Prudential, and he was like coaching with some of these guys, and they 5 to 7 agents he had. And we went from 5 to 7 agents to 90 agents in 4 to 5 different markets in 9 years. So not a lot of people know this. He retired, he moved on, and I'm sitting around like, what am I gonna do? I joined EXP 17 months ago, and I thought, my whole vision was like, if I could get 100 people in 1 year, I'm cool. It took us 9 years to do it. I had 90 agents in 90 days. I had to evaluate my life and my goals and everything.
And now over 400, right?
420 and we're at 70 people. So for him to say 70 grand yesterday, I'm trying to track that down. I got paid 35. There's one thing that he said that is very important. He hated driving to work every day, and somebody, they don't know me, they're here. And he said, dude, I sent you a picture of yourself when you sold 1,000 houses, and I was in front of my sales team. I was unhealthy, I was overweight, and he's like, you just didn't look good. He's like, seeing you now, you look good. I said, I'm running a better business model right now, and I'm thankful. Right.
What am I supposed to do?
You're the coach. You're supposed to be telling us what to do. Give us a success story in your organization in regards to onboarding an independent.
Sure, yeah. I was fortunate because early on, is Chris Bear out there somewhere? Where is he?
No, he's not.
Okay. So I was coaching an independent broker down in Florida, and they were looking, once you take down and peel the onion back and you look at an independent broker's P&L, they're losing money.
Right.
Any Lil Wayne fans out there? Right? So scared money is what? Broke money. Scared, everybody say that. Scared money is broke money. And so what happens is these independent brokers, they're not playing to win right now. What are they doing? They're playing not to lose, right? And they lie to themselves. They tell themselves all kind of lies. For example, I was on the phone last week with some folks I'll just say on the East Coast, and they're actually a franchisee, but they're like a small broker, independent broker. And their mindset was that they were profitable, but what they hadn't done is they hadn't accounted for their own salaries, right? So there's a great book that you guys may have heard of. What's the name of it, Al?
It's called
Straight Talk, Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, and Profits. It's by Greg Crabtree.
Right.
And the key message in there for me was, you've got to give yourself a market wage in order to look and see how profitable, because if you got to replace yourself, what would you have to pay somebody? What would you have to pay to make up that production, to make up that salary for what you're doing in there, beating your head against the wall, 60 hours a week, keeping your brokerage above water? And so when you walk through people, you really see that they just don't understand it. They're not really paying attention to what moves the needle in their business. And the other thing is, a lot of these independent brokers like myself, I was independent for 9 years, we have this mindset. It's kind of like, I thought that was the pinnacle of real estate when you got there and you got your broker's license, right? Everybody remember that day? Remember that? We thought the money tree would just start, dropping money on us. And then we got this bright idea that we wanted to get in the business of managing people. Bad idea, right? Everybody had that experience. And so, but that was the level, and it wasn't until this model came out that there was life after that. And at 58 years old, and I remember the day, just like it was yesterday, when Brent Gove came and found me in Dallas at the Marriott, Shops of Legacy, and it was in October, the last day of EGS in 2016, and he looked at me, and the poor guy looked disheveled. He looked like he'd just gotten out of a street fight. But the reason why is because he hadn't slept in 3 days. It turns out that he'd just come back from shareholders in San Antonio, and he grabbed me and he said, "Look, I know you know me, and we're great friends." He said, "But there's something I got to tell you about." He said, "You've got to go find this lady with the long blonde hair, Sheila Fezeron, God bless her, love you, and watch the video." Well, so what had happened was he went down, met everybody, Glenn and everyone in San Antonio, and realized that this business model was EXP is totally disruptive.
Right.
And that's the key. And you've got independent brokers out there who can't get past the old model. I have a little TV podcast, and Chris was on it the other day, and I use an example. This is how realtors think. Who's heard of Gary Keller out there? Anybody? Okay. Hall of Famer. Amen? Is he not just the greatest guy in the world? He really is. In fact, he wrote the Bible that we have all read. What color is that book? Red. What's it called? Okay, that was the Bible. But what people don't realize is it was the Old Testament.
That's awesome.
All right, let's keep it going.
All right. So the sunk cost that a lot of independent brokers have is the fact that they think that they put all this time, effort, energy of building this brand, right? What's the brand worth?
Ego.
Well, I can tell you, only 3 out of 100 sellers picked that agent because of the balloon on the sign, or that it was red or yellow or whatever. The franchise doesn't matter. The brand that you think you build as a broker isn't worth anything. So there's a process, and I love Shelley Johnson's husband. Bill Price was talking earlier, and he has this thing, the 70-20-10. And what was the rule about 70%?
Let them talk.
You've got to listen. Zig Ziglar used to say, there's a reason God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Why is that? You should listen twice as much as you talk, right? So if you get these people to talk and open up, then you can ask the right questions to help identify their pain points. And if you can solve problems, just like Brent Gove did for me in 2016, I was afraid I was going to outlive my money, and I was going to have, my kids were going to have to take care of me just like I took care of my mom before she passed away. For 5 years, I was her caregiver, okay? Let's not let that happen to these people. Let's get them, let's help them solve these problems. Every big team and every small brokerage that moves over here, 90% of them, I hear it every time, they're moving over here because it's a better life for their agents.
Right.
Okay? It's not about them, it's about their agents. All right?
So let me add on that point a bit. One of the values that we bring to an independent broker is not just to relieve them of broker liability and enable them to scale without capital risk. We also enable them to create a legacy. For example, let's say somebody has an independent brokerage with 11 offices. Each of those offices are going to have a number of agents in them, of which it would be natural for those folks to be under that manager as you structure, the revenue share, right? And so it's conceivable that that broker could create an opportunity of significant magnitude for all 11 of those managers that otherwise wouldn't have had it. any ownership or stock.
That's true. That's, when you say better for your agents, anybody else get the invitation to EOS with Kristen Cole? She's back around doing that, right? Okay, so expansion and doing things for agents at EXP has a whole different meaning, right? You guys all get that.
No, they don't. They don't.
Do you guys all get that?
They don't.
Okay, the MRE model's a broken model. It creates artificial glass ceilings in there for people, and
Right.
it makes the idea of being able to help people self-actualize
Right.
almost impossible.
Right.
They have to move out in order to move up.
Right.
In EXP, we don't do that, right? What we can do is we can pour and build and take team members and help them learn to do what we do. We want them to do that. I want to take new people in on one end of my team, and I want them leaving 2 years later. I want them to go out and create their own legacy, like we were talking about, Don, and show them how to do that. God rewards you by how much you pour into other people's lives. And your bank account is a direct reflection, just like these guys, of how much you're impacting other people's lives. End of story, that's it.
So I think you can,
No, so I want to add one thing to this, because
Yeah, go ahead.
we are always training people to leave us. And I used to think it was me, I used to blame them, we used to change our splits up, and I'm like 27, 30 years old trying to figure this out. And then I hit 35, I said, I'm just in a bad model, but I'm an independent. And so every 18 to 24 months, people left us. So what Cliff was talking about right now, you can use your team or your brokerage or whatever as a nest, but use it to build the network. Because before it's like, we cut the leads off, we gotta get a key back, have a nice life, see you like, and now he just said right there, that is so empowering, because now I can risk my own money. I can want to go out and be Adam Bailey or Alvin or Mike Herbick or all these other people, but now they're not a team leader, they're not a boss, now they're a partner. They're in financial alignment. Oh, you want your name on the sign, you want to put your logo, that's cool, I'll teach you everything. Before, we would have never did that before, so we gave them the noodles. The noodles was 80%. But the sauce, that 20%, is what changes people's lives, and now we can do that because of the network. And that was actually what you were talking about. I've lived it. And people are like, I love you, I love working with you, but I gotta go, because I want to become you.
so what Cliff and Adam are referring to is that there's been, for the last decade or so, a tremendous movement of these huge production teams and expansion teams. And the reason why I believe Cliff, or one of the primary reasons why Cliff is referring to that as the Old Testament, is because that model requires an intense amount of management due to the attrition of it. Okay? And while they're producing certainly a lot of volume, I would say it's suspect quality, they're not necessarily producing a lot of profit.
Bingo.
Right? And that's a huge advantage that we have to offer them. Alan?
Just so it was on one of those days that I was driving to work. I was driving home, pissed off. That I went home, had some dinner, got a bottle of wine, and I started writing. And I haven't really released this paper yet, but it's called The Death of the Real Estate Team, Where the Red Book Lied. So I'm gonna release it soon. Yeah. And so it was there was frustration in there, but I kind of like broke down how real estate was in the 80s. You know, it was common to have 50-50 splits with brokerages. Teams didn't exist, and there's just been this shift and into this model. MRE came out, teams started evolving, and what teams have done, I think it's important to understand, you know, what teams took up the slack where the brokers, I don't want to say failed, but couldn't, because there's no money. There's no money in the bucket. So team leaders formed small teams, put agents on splits with them, took some of the cost of administration, coached them, and gave them lead generation, which is the number one thing when we talk to agents, whether it's about coaching or whatever. What's their number one problem? Where's my next customer coming from? Where's my next client coming from? So teams stepped in and solved the problem. I believe what's really great about just EXP's model is that whereas all these other brokerages are trying to, let's say, maybe compete with what a team can bring as a value proposition to the agent. EXP is just going to stay there. They stay in their lane. They create the platform, and look at all the amazing teams that keep joining us and independent brokerages. Really forgot where I was going with that. Oh, yeah. So we actually did a Facebook Live. Jay and I did one on Death of the Real Estate Team. I think we put it on YouTube. So if you want to YouTube search it, we go a little bit into that. So I wanted to just
Actually, you did a good interview with Glenn Sanford about his team as well.
So what is actually being built right now? And I've been with this company 17 months, and it just started clicking with me here recently. That guy, we were ranked 9th to 12th in the nation from 2012 to 2017. In one of those spots, and we bounce around. And we're building new modern teams because how we can triangulate, collaborate, and drive revenue across state lines together. And before we had to do it in the block or that area or that territory. So what you're talking about right there, like the principles of how we built our team, now we can bring them that same value and them same principles to a much larger, bigger, modern team that's hopefully going to be just a better experience for the consumer and then us as business owners, really. So modern teams is where it's at. You got a question?
So, 17 months ago, you didn't know what the hell you wanted to do, excuse the language, but 9 years ago you were making $1,200 a month, and now you're making $30 to $1. But you're earning 30 to 1 what you were earning 9 years ago. So 17 months ago, he didn't know what he wanted to do with real estate after being super, uber successful in real estate. But 9 years ago, he's earning 30 to 1.
Right.
But you changed 400 lives. What's more important right now to
you? Normally, I had to say, did you call your leads today? Why are you following up with your people? You know what I mean? Now I'm in business with people like her, him. There's a lot of people that are in alignment with me. And I am more thrilled to get up and say, I probably put in more hours than I did before. But I'm more passionate because I'm changing their lives. I'm helping their companies grow. This ain't just about cracking down on KPIs or leading indicators, lagging indicators, all the things that you have to focus on to build good businesses. I'm just thankful that this model is here because I'm in business with people I love working with. That's it. And when you're like, you didn't know what you wanted to do, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to work with fun people. I wanted to work with people I respected. I wanted to get up and sell a lot of houses with you, but also say we're really good friends. Not we gotta sell houses together just because you live down the street from me now. So to be able to say we can get in business with who we want, and Tony Robbins, he got me at an event. Tony Robbins, I want to be able to do what I want, when I want, with whoever I want, and EXP does that for me. So that's it.
So the key distinction from having one of these big production teams or owning an independent brokerage, in those situations.
Did I answer your question though?
Yeah.
So, real quick,
Just hold on. Let me finish this point. So a key distinction is that when you have one of these teams or you're an independent broker, you are responsible for those agents and all of the obligations that come with it, the infrastructure. In this model, you are responsible to your sales organization. And it's a really key distinction. And I think that's what's giving you a life back, right? And so many of us.
No, it's high leverage situation. It's a high leverage situation. It's all about time, value, and money. And I'm able to put myself in high leverage situations and work on what I need to do to drive production and revenue. And before, we were cutting checks, we were doing brokerage stuff.
But you're over your 2 minutes.
Y'all want to know how to attract big teams or independent brokers? Is that why everybody's here? Yes. Every single one of them needs new agents to fuel their business. Every reason that somebody's going to come over to EXP or come join you is based on relationship. Be transparent, be honest, be integrity-based, and say, I'm keeping my options open. I want to know what you offer, and shut up and let them talk. They'll tell you everything they want to know or you need to know about their business. Don't bring up EXP. It's not the place for it, but if they ask you, and they will, tell them. That's going to give you the relationship, which will give you the edge, and then continue to be in relationship with them for months and months and months and months. Fair?
Yep.
Okay, so we've got my 5-minute signal here. So I want to shift gears a little bit. I think you can all see that we're pretty persuaded that having independents join us is a good move for them and us. Now let's talk about the bumps and bruises of onboarding an independent. So what have we learned in this experience?
So we brought on several, we brought on a 100-person brokerage. They were here for maybe about 60, 90 days and left. That's actually happened twice. We've had, thankfully, much more success stories than those, but we're talking about lessons and failures. I think a couple of takeaways would be this. Never assume that that the broker you're talking to understands the model fully, even if they've watched stuff. They draw conclusions as they see what they want to see, they hear what they want to hear. A lot of things are left out, and then they get to all the point where you're about to start onboarding, and they had a completely different view of how like payouts were done. Or I think one of the biggest misnomers when we're talking to a broker that we find out because we dig a little further is that they think, this is just an assumption, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, everyone just assumes that if they brought all their agents, let's say they had 50 agents, they just assume that they're going to be surviving purely off of revenue share and there's not going to be a split. This is just an assumption I run into over and over and over again. And so I make it very, very clear that's not the case. Let's be clear, we're going to get them on splits. And what they're going to be doing is turning their brokerage into a seed and keeping and trying to keep as many splits as possible in play if they're significant. They have to do that, otherwise they're going to go out of business, go broke, or they're going to have to close, get rid of a lot of their expenses.
And
Absolutely.
here's the best way you do it. You got to have spreadsheets.
Yeah,
You
and
got to
so
flex models and know the math.
right, and so one of our responsibilities, if you're going to attract independent brokers, is you need to properly set expectations.
Right.
And what you're going to find, not just in attracting brokers, but in your real estate practice as well, is that your referrals will be proportionate to the extent you exceed their expectations. So if you don't set expectations for what it's going to take to properly onboard, you're going to end up with a very disgruntled independent broker that could actually get him or herself into some really serious financial trouble. So this is no joke. You really have to dive deep. As Adam said, get the spreadsheet out and look at their cost structure, look at what's temporary, look at what's permanent, and help them make a plan of action so that they can shed that infrastructure cost. So we have 1 minute left. Does anybody have?
Yeah, one more thing. If you're bringing on an independent broker, the chances are the agents are pretty good at doing what they do. Focus your energy on their administrative staff, because if that's not steady for them, they will fall over. You saw that with 100 people. I know the model you're talking about. Focus on the people that support the agents and the brokers, and you're halfway home. And then just pour into them. You only got to do it about 40 or 50 times in your life, and it's awesome.
Okay, Cliff, bring it home for us.
All right, everybody raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I
Swear that I will no longer bear the burdens of the world on my shoulders. Amen. Okay. Now, what we just said is, now I want you to listen to what I'm going to tell you. Okay? Listen to this. So, the way you do this is, don't be the expert on EXP. Be the connector of people. Look at your upline. Look at other people around you. Connect people. If you're talking with independent brokers, find people they can relate to. People use me that a lot in my group. They always speak with me because my story relates to those people. Okay, that's number one. Number two is, never try to close them. Get them to one of these events. I don't care if you hook, line, and sinker. I don't care if you've got to beg, borrow, go to your upline, get them a hotel room, get them here, get them to EXPCon. If you know independent agents that are candidates, that's what was said earlier. Big decisions happen at big events. They've got to see the culture. They've got to see the social proof. Get them to one of these events. And just, if you remember those two things, you will start to see some success, I promise you.
All right, well, thank you.
Hey.